Guerrilla cricket. Whoa. Guerrilla cricket. Whoa. Guerrilla. Take large man the barricades, patrol the cover boundary. At last the time has come, this is a cricketing emergency. Hear this call to arms for every cricket revolutionary. Take up your bats and stumps for the test match insurgency. At first they tried to silence us, but we would not be silenced. They threatened us with lies, so we threatened them with violence. Che Guevara, Sangakkara, Joseph Stalin, Douglas Jardine, Robespierre, Carol Hare, Vladimir Lenin, O'Brien Kevin, guerrilla cricket. It's not about the winning, it's about how many rules you break. Even in cricket commentary, this is the best advice to take. Pick guerrilla cricket, it's the finest choice you'll ever make. There's so much more to cricket than rev counters and a slice of cake. At first they tried to sanitize us and clean up our act, but people like it filthy, and we know that for a fact. Fidel Castro, Lenny Pascoe, Carlos the Jackal, Umar Akmal, Mahatma Gandhi, Grant and Andy, Brendan Behan, Austin Ian, guerrilla cricket. Stick with us, cause you know we're not the kind of thing that you see on the TV and the radio. So vive la revolution. First they tried to buy us, but we would not be bought. Okay, we were, but then we ran away, and we will not be caught. Would not give up the ghost when they left us all for dead. They decapitated us, but we just grew another head. Chairman Mao, Jamie Howe, Ho Chi Minh, Asif Din, Václav Havel, Graham Saville, No Surrender, Percy Fender, Che Guevara, Sangakkara, Joseph Stalin, Douglas Jardine, Robespierre, Darrell Hare, Vladimir Lenin, O'Brien Kevin, guerrilla cricket.
Day 3 belonged to a 22-year-old from Exeter who wasn't in the original touring party and eschewed fast bowling in favour of off-spin because as a youth he was, in his own words, a little porker and didn't want to bother with a long run-up. But the puppy fat is long gone. He's been training under the great Ranganahara, and yesterday Dominic Peter Bess became the youngest England spinner to take an overseas test fifer and the first England spinner to dismiss the first 5 batters in an innings since deadly Derek Underwood against Australia in Adelaide some 21 and a half years before Bess was born. Ben Stokes prized the adhesive night watchman Anrich Nortje from the crease, but dropped Quinton de Kock 3 times, twice off Joe Root, once off Joe Denley. In the company of Werner Philander, the Proteas keeper has given South Africa a sniff of avoiding the follow-on, but England's greatest foe might just be the weather. Hello, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Guerrilla Cricket's coverage of England's 2019-20 tour of South Africa. The Test series is level 1 all. We're about to start day 4 of the third Test at the historic St George's Park in Port Elizabeth. And in reply to England's 499 for 9 declared, South Africa are 208 for 6, still 92 runs away from avoiding the follow-on target. I'm Knuckle M. Pandey, I'm your Sunday Relief MC, and joining me for the first half hour are on the jingles DJ Paul Grubby Howarth, and reading your social media messages, the ultimate hype man, Tony Bishop.
You're this what, man?
The ultimate hype man.
Hype man?
Hype man.
Why am I the ultimate hype man?
It's a rap term. Your Honour.
Oh.
Welcome, friend.
I thought originally you said pipe, and I thought, well, hang on.
That might be more fitting.
I'm not sure about the ultimate pipe man. We've got some friends already. It's, on Crick Tracker, Sunil Thakur says good morning. Hamad Ali Doobie-Doo is with us. Arif Swaboon is with us, who is talking about Australia, actually. But that's
Australia, India, the third one-day international as the toss has happened. Australia won the toss and will bat. Josh Hazlewood in for Kane Richardson. No changes for India, but our attention will be firmly on Port Elizabeth.
And somebody called Mog says, listen very carefully. I shall say this only once. Hello. Well, hello and good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Mog. Yes, now, the wonderful Dominic Bess effort. We did some homework on his other 20, or the youngest spinners. Pat Pocock, 21 years and 260 days, 6 for 79 at Old Trafford against the Aussies.
1968.
You mentioned Derek Underwood in Adelaide, but he got his first 5 for when he was 22 and 68 days versus Pakistan at Trent Bridge in 67. Dom Bess third on that list, as we know, currently 5 for 51. And prior to that, the one which none of us got, I don't think, Ian Peebles, 6 for 204, probably smashed around the Oval by Don Bradman in 1930. He was 22 years and 212 days.
Probably went for a lot of runs through mid-wicket, because that's the only shot that Don ever had, really, isn't it?
Well,
it's very one-dimensional as a batsman. I always found.
Funny enough, he always spoke very highly
in my previous life.
Funny enough, he always spoke very highly about you.
Yeah, Ian Peebles,
as yet unborn.
The sort of name that you have to say in a Scottish accent, I find.
Well, he sounds to me.
Ian Peebles.
He sounds like a disc jockey. Oh, that was Andy Peebles, wasn't it?
Oh, it was, yeah.
I wonder if they're related.
The Peebles sounds like a very small range of hills somewhere in southern England. I'm going walking in the Peebles.
I'm gunning for a wee trek in the Peebles.
You'll have had your tea, etc., etc.
Back on today's action ahead of us. Yeah, Quinton de Kock batted very well despite being dropped 3 times, 63 not out. That's the 7th home test in a row that he's scored a 50 in a really tricky 12 months or so for South Africa.
He is a beautiful player to watch, isn't he?
Superb. I mean, his timing, his balance, his placement.
Box office.
And Werner Philander at the other end in his penultimate test match of his very fine career is 27 not out. South Africa 208 for 6, still need 92 runs to take the decision as to whether to follow on out of England's hands. We put out a poll before the start of play asking whether South Africa will fail to get to that target and whether England will enforce it. But we'll think about all those issues in a little while, because we do have Seam at the Park Drive end. It's the tall blonde beanpole.
What would make Broad walk? If his stumps were knocked down. What would make Broad walk? Caught 5 feet off the ground. What would make Broad walk? If he trod on his stumps. What would make Broad walk? If God was one of the arms. What would make Broad walk? Broad walk.
And he's going to be bowling to this man.
Broad in very full to Werner Philander, who blocks this nicely out into the offside. Dominic Sibley galumps in from short extra cover to field. There is no run.
The best you could hope for is to nick over slips off Big Bird. They call him the surgeon of bowling machine. Surgically tear out your stumps real clean. He'll make you feel like you let down the team. That's Big Bird.
Haven't heard that one. It's not the Philanderer, is it?
No, it's a new one commissioned for his final series. 2 slips or wait to Stuart Broad bowls outside off stump. A little bit of movement in off the seam, passed well over the top of off stump, left alone by Werner Philander, through to the keeper, just Butler, and there is no run.
And at the non-striker's end is the doe-eyed
Quinton de Kock has a name you can mock, but he's really quite useful at cricket. I have heard that he can open a bat, even if he's not keeping wickets.
Very, very useful player indeed, and a very good wicket-keeper, actually, up to the stumps off seamers and spinners, and back to the stumps off the fast bowlers. Full outside off stump, a little bit of movement into the right-hander, fielded at mid-off as Philander pushes defensively. There is no run. The talk this morning, Stephen Finn was in the Sky studio looking very nice in a very sort of, I think,
preppy,
sensible grey jumper and blazer combo, saying that Broad and Curran would be his choices to open the bowling this morning with a little bit of cloud cover around. It is dry in Port Elizabeth, but it is cloudy.
Yeah, I think that length that we just saw Broad bowl there is the one he wants to explore, that full length.
As we say that, he bowls a pointless short ball outside off stump, which Werner Philander didn't need to duck, but did through to the keeper. There is no run. Yeah, we did a podcast before the Test match with Daniel Gallen, and he was saying, and the stats back this up, that Port Elizabeth you have to bowl probably 6 inches fuller at least than you do at most other South African grounds.
Well, this is something we've spoken about previously, haven't we, about Stuart Broad over his career. He's progressively become fuller, and noticeably so in the Ashes series last summer, with some decent reward.
Mostly at the expense of David Warner. There's also a shortish mid-wicket in play, so there's the 2 slips and a sort of backward point at kind of gully almost is quite fine, and the short extra cover and the short mid-wicket. This is full outside off stump. Philander solidly in behind it, pushes past short extra cover to mid-off. There is no run. Mark Wood enjoying life somewhere near the square leg umpire.
As he usually does. But yeah, I mean, certainly on a pitch where you've really got to work for your wickets, where you've got this cloud cover, you've got a relatively new ball in your hand, now is the time to shove it up there and just see if you can just eke a little bit of movement through the air out.
Last ball of the first over, he's bowled him through the gate. Big in-swinger from Stuart Broad, and not something he's done in the last few years, but that fuller length that Grubby was talking about. Big in-swinger through the gate, off stump, nearly decapitates Joss Butler. A beauty from Stuart Broad. Vernon Philander gone for 27, South Africa 208 for 7.
It's a simple game, isn't it, Tone?
It is. Well,
Shove it up there.
I was about to say, did he pitch that up? Yes. It was funny. It was bizarre. We said pitch it up, pitch it up, pitch it up. He then immediately bowls a rather pointless short pitch delivery. He might argue it was the old 1-2.
Well, the odd one. I mean, he's bowled 3 out of 4 of that fuller length, and one happened to be the shorter one.
So maybe we give him the credit and say he was mixing it up.
I think overall he knows what he's doing.
Very much just what England wanted.
Yeah, it was an absolute beauty. I mean, Stuart Broad, certainly in his very young days, he was a swing bowler, and then, as you say, has been largely used because of his height, has been banging the ball in sort of length or slightly back of length, but that was pitched up, and it genuinely did swing in a considerable distance. We saw the demon boy child Sam Curran sharpening his pitchfork somewhere in the outfield. I imagine he will be into the attack, but Quinton de Kock now really does have the tail, a decent tail. I mean, Keshav Maharaj, Koisa Rabada can both bat. Dane Patterson remains to be seen on Test debut, but a beauty from Broad.
Yeah.
What a start for England.
Well, I think actually, if we look at that replay again when it comes on, you might see that it actually just jags a bit off the seam rather than extravagant movement through the air, that one. But it was a full length, however, and certainly much too good for Big Vern. Stumps everywhere. Here comes the new batsman. It is this fella.
There's a bowler there from South Africa. Started out bowling pace, but he made the switch. I wonder why, but he's known as Keshav.
Before Quinton de Kock takes strike 2, presumably Curran from the Duck Pond end. Shall we get a few tweets in?
We absolutely can. Spit the Dog, a.k.a. Cave Llewellyn. Strangely said, Brian Cant. Possibly the nicest guy to ever live. Play away, play away, play away.
Ipswich
Enough
man.
said.
Ipswich man, you know.
Is there a reason why he's been... He sadly left us a while ago, didn't he?
It is the demon boy child starting left arm over the wicket to Quinton de Kock. A little bit of swing away from the left-hander. Foot too wide, taken by Butler above his toes. There is no run.
Anyway, I was always a fan of Spit the Dog, so welcome.
Sam Curran.
What's his distinguishing feature?
Sam Curran.
He starts from Zimbabwe.
Sam Curran.
And he's beloved by Liz Yates.
Sam Curran.
Looking at that replay again, a little from column A, a little from column B. It was a little bit of swing and then exacerbated, I think, by the seam movement. This from Sam Curran is full and tempting Quinton de Kock, but he leaves through to the keeper. There is no run. Sometimes when the ball swings really late, it sort of the ball almost doesn't realise it's swinging until it's pitched. But an aggressive drive thing from Philander. Big gate, stumps flying.
Yeah, but it was absolutely the length that got him that wicket, wasn't it? It was in on the angle, slightly through the air, a bit more off the seam, not much though. We're seeing the replay now. A terrible shot, you have to say, from Philander.
Back of a length from Sam Curran, a little bit too short, and so the swing is and seam movement is comfortable for Quinton de Kock, who can cover up in defence off the back foot. There is no run.
Yeah, Philander basically exposing all three stumps. His feet never really got further across than his leg stump, playing away from his body, leaving a massive gate, the Brandenburg gate, and through it went.
Yeah, it's the kind of shot you can play when your feet are moving, but not necessarily at the start of the day.
Yeah.
Curran in that one moves a little bit in the air towards de Kock and then away from him and bounces a little bit. Comes off the sort of outside part of the splice. I think. I mean, there's an LBW shout. I'm sure that came off bat. I think. Even if it did hit the bat, it's too high and going down leg, so nobody's really interested. I may have misread this. Totally. Oh yeah. It beat the bat by some distance. Apologies, listener. Hit him on the bat on the front thigh pad and was
Seems
clearly
like
not
Ben
hitting the
Stokes, I
stumps.
think, was the most vociferous appealer.
The person probably within radius of the bat who had the worst view. He bowled him! Sam Curran's done Stuart Broad Quinton de Kock in the same way that Stuart Broad did Vernon Thielander. That was one that was pitched up. It swung into the left-handed Quinton de Kock. He doesn't usually move the ball that way, Sam Curran. It's more into the right-hander and away from the left-hander. But that one just kept on coming, took out middle stump through the gate. Both Quinton de Kock and Vernon Thielander a little bit too aggressive, a little bit too adventurous against the swinging ball early on. Broad has struck, Curran has struck. England had both ends open. South Africa 208 for 8.
So get on your bike and take a hike right out of here. Your history, no good for me. Your history, nah.
Both real tempters from Broad and Curran. Just that length that you really, really want to drive, and the ball hasn't been doing that much in the air and off the seam throughout the Test match, but probably a little bit too early. But credit to England for summing up the conditions.
Well, they did, didn't they? I don't think they could have. They couldn't have asked for more, really, off the first couple of overs. A wicket in the first, a wicket in the second. Both. Stephen Finn, I would imagine, if he said his chosen opening pair would be Broad and Curran, must be sitting there in his cable minute jumper or whatever sensible outfit he was wearing, feeling quite pleased with his punditry skills, I would imagine.
Well, look, I mean, I'll never know how it feels as an international fast bowler to see stumps cartwheeling away, but it must be an incredibly thrilling sight to see from the other end. Certainly as a watcher, there are a few things more exciting than seeing that, and on that occasion Curran managed to pluck the middle stump out of the ground and leaving off and leg just standing there. It was perfect, wasn't it?
So with thinking about time now, what do they need? They need another 41 to avoid that follow-on target.
92.
What do we think?
92.
92. Oh, of course. Yeah.
They haven't added
Highly
the run.
unlikely.
They've not added the run.
It will be enforced if
I think
England have the opportunity to do
if it
so.
happens quickly and you haven't taken anything out your bowlers, then I think they, with the weather as is,
And
I
more
think
breaks
the
forecast.
weather is the determining factor, really.
Let's jingle up the new batsman.
He's a high roller, rock and roller, scariest, deadliest, killingest bowler. He can sink your oats like the Spanish Armada. No one faster, no one harder. What's his name? What's his name? Tell me, what's his name? KG.
Men Ven Classic there.
Sam Curran in 3 slips to KG Rabada, the presumably very miffed KG Rabada. He blocks his first ball up to mid-on and there is no run. And if England do enforce the follow-on, KG Rabada might have done his last bowling for the series. Of course, will miss the 4th test after his send-off to Joe Root earned him a demerit point, which pushed him over the accumulated number of demerit points needed to miss a test match. Yeah, there was a surgical strike on the middle stump from Sam Curran.
Wasn't it just? Plucked that middle stump out, didn't touch off or leg.
Absolute beauty from Sam Curran.
Why did you say Rabada's going to be miffed? Because he's in already?
No, just because he's been miffed pretty much since all test matches.
He's a bit angry, generally.
Anna Forsyth says, Yobish Wagwan, which is lovely. Bit of Jamaican patois.
Wagwan. Hello,
Wagwan.
Anna. Good to see you, good to hear you.
And very good to hear you, as ever. Jonathan Shortland has a very interesting question, so I'm going to wait until after this ball.
magnificent start that England have made raises a number of questions. Kesha Maharaj facing up to his first ball. They must have taken a single then. KJ Rabada must have taken the one up to mid-on. They come through... Sorry.
That was the end of the last over.
Sorry, I missed that, yeah.
So
Rabada blocked at the last ball of Karan's over. Broad bowling to Maharaj. Maharaj blocks up to mid-off. There is no run. Both batters on 0 off 1. This may influence quite significantly people's GPL predictions. I'll explain the GPL in full in just a second.
Just one quick observation there as we watch that in slow motion. Isn't it nice to see some good old-fashioned dark wooden bales flying in the air, not flashing like an aeroplane landing?
I'm a fan of the Zing bales, and I think they make the third umpire's job much easier. But I take your point.
Good woody bales. Good woody bales.
None of this tinny. Ollie Pope has gone in under the lid at short leg to Kesha Maharaj. He's fairly close in. He's not out. He's not quite on the cut strip. He's a little bit sort of 5-6 yards back maybe. Maharaj blocks from the crease to Joe Denley at backward point. There is no run. Yes, the GPL is open. It's open till lunchtime, of course. Go to guerrillacricket.com/competition, log in or register, follow the on-screen instructions, and what you're doing is guessing the number of runs that will be scored in today's play. You can have as many guesses as you like. You pay £1 per guess. The pounds go in the pot, and if you're right with your guesstimate, you win that pot. The pot currently is £70, or it was at the start of today's play. You have until lunch to enter. That's 10 a.m. UK time, 12 p.m. South African time, as Stuart Broad is in to Kesha Maharaji. We've seen a couple of injudicious drives. That is the absolute worst shot of the lot from Kesha Maharaj. He's tried to pull Stuart Broad, who's bowled a full delivery, outside off stump. Maharaj has a horrible hook across the line. I'm not sure if it took the bottom edge, but we've had off stump taken out by Broad to Thielander. We've had middle stump taken out by Curran to Quinton de Kock, and now we've had leg stump off the bottom edge taken out by Stuart Broad off Kesha Maharaj. An absolute dereliction of duty, really, from Kesha Maharaj. Gone for a duck.
Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle.
2.5 overs,
What a
3
mix.
for none
What
for
a
England.
mix.
2.5 overs, 3 for none. And for his first bat in Test match cricket, in comes a 30-year-old Cape Tonian.
Have you heard of Ben Patterson? He's a bowler, South African. Favourite ferret, Upton Cullen. He's got a really fine abdomen.
You can just about excuse Werner Thielander and Quinton de Kock for trying to drive full deliveries. You can at least see the logic. What Kesha Maharaj thought he was going to get out of that attempted pull shot, I've no idea.
None of them have been great shots, if we're perfectly honest.
Well, it also appeared to be sort of slightly lazily executed, don't you think? It's not a great deal of footwork. It's just a sort of a swish across his pads, really.
Yeah,
Funny old shot.
He's been so doughty with the ball throughout the last 2 Test matches. But that was a shot of someone who didn't want to be there, really. It was bizarre.
Yeah, it's almost like it's the last knock into the game and all hope has gone. And he's just, oh, well, whatever. May as well go down swinging. 3 poor shots. I mean, some decent bowling from England, but, neither de Kock nor Philander laid a glove on theirs.
2 slips and a short leg and a short mid-wicket. Dane Patterson just about survives his first ball in Test cricket. Again, a little bit of swing into the right-hander. And Patterson gets some of a bat on it. It dribbles out into the offside. There is no run. This shot doesn't get any better the more you look at it from Kesha Maharaj. It was just a regulation delivery outside off stump. Maharaj head up in the air, visions of glory.
Just got to leave that, haven't you?
There's no percentage in that. So Quinton de Kock and Werner Philander were doing it a little bit yesterday when England's bowlers were slightly more tired and the ball wasn't swinging. But really, that's a decent forward defensive by Dane Patterson. Not a huge stride, but got the middle of the bat on the ball. That one moved the other way from Stuart Broad. Might have been the leg cutter, and it dribbles up to mid-off. There is no run. It doesn't look like Ben Stokes' drops last night were costing them particularly.
No, he'll still feel dirty with himself, though, because he's a
Yeah.
perfectionist, his
He
Stokesy,
is.
amongst many other things.
Oh, no doubt, yeah. And by his standards, by his lofty standards,
Yeah.
as Broad is in a full delivery on middle and leg stump and blocked by Patterson all on the ground at 2. Pope at short leg, there is no run. 3 overs, none for 3 for none for England. South Africa in all sorts, 208 for 9.
Jonathan Shawland, yes, we'll go back to that for a second. Says, good evening. One of my Kiwi friends highlighted a local outfit called the Alternative Commentary Collective. I've not listened to them yet, but there will be an India versus Black Caps T20 on Friday that I will be at, so I might try them there if there's no GC. They're not bad actually at all. They're what I might call sort of semi-professional amateurs, as it were.
I mean, they're all,
and they're all sort of professional communicators, comedians.
They're professional radio
Yeah.
DJs, morning radio
So they are
DJs.
basically, they're radio morning DJs, but they're quite entertaining.
By all means, give them a listen. There's the Brotherhood of Alternative and Independent Cricket Commentary Collectives shall live. Khaisa Rabada facing up to Sam Curran. That's down the leg side. The first poor ball that England have bowled this morning. It swung back round towards Khaisa Rabada, but long after it had passed the stumps, Butler takes down the leg side. There is no run.
Now, I think Mia
take
Katie...
that.
Oh, sorry.
No, just decent take that, because he'd gone down the leg side, and then the ball, as Knuckle described, it sort of it swung after it had gone past the batsman down the arse, and it was almost like Butler had gone too far because it swung back towards off. But
it
he
felt
took
like
it
it's pretty
nicely.
good. Sort of 2 steps and a 4th slip in place. That's a little bit too short from Sam Curran. A matter of only 6 inches or so, or maybe even less back of length. And Rabada's can block off the back foot. There is no run. And it's pretty obvious that Ben Folkes is a better keeper than Jos Buttler, but Butler's not done
Yeah.
anything particularly wrong in this series with the gloves.
I'm a huge Ben Folkes fan. I mean, it seems utterly nonsensical that he's not in the touring party at all, to me.
I mean, it did look a bit silly when Bairstow was having to keep in the when Butler got injured, and when Pope was having to keep in the second test of the New Zealand series. Finally, the first run this morning after 3.5 overs. It was a sort of a length delivery on leg stump. Rabada flicked it down to long leg, and they take the single. We've seen that England have bowled very full throughout today. And pretty the only one that was even vaguely short, kind of on the shorter length of good, was the ball at Keshav Maharaj for no obvious reason.
It feels like an
pull.
event. Feels like an event, that single, doesn't it?
Oh, it does,
So
yeah.
we should have that jingle that Andy Ward and I have discussed in the past. It should be "Single Girl" by Lush.
Oh my word! I don't know who Dane Patterson thinks he is, but he's backed away outside leg stump and tried to slam Sam Curran on the up over long off. He's missed it completely by about a mile through to the keeper. There is no run. I'm baffled by what is happening to South Africa out there. No wonder Joe Root is grinning.
Yes, extraordinary, isn't it? Mia Katie says all the sneaking around, trying to be quiet and not wake the household, is rendered completely pointless by Nakul Mpande's excitement about that wicket, of which there have, of course, been 2 since. It's too early for that. You're just as well the Bears not in, Katie.
Oh, an absolute cracker from Sam Curran. To quote Fred Truman, "Too good for thee, son." It swung in a little bit, then moved off the seam and beat Dane Patterson's something that was vaguely pretending to be a drive. And then he does the Courtney Walsh, tuck the bat under the arm. Dane Patterson absolutely beaten. It didn't need to be that good, really.
Yeah, too good for thee. Absolutely right.
Too good for thee. Francis Brett says Stuart Broad letting the ball do the talking. Take note, Kagiso.
Yeah.
I loved his celebration when he bowled Phil Andy. Saw it in slow motion. He's almost celebrating before the ball hits the wicket. You can see he's come through the gate.
Broad is just about slow enough to be able to. He does have a wonderful sense of drama about him, Stuart Broad. It's
He
great.
does.
In comes Sam Curran round the wicket now to Dane Patterson, targeting the stumps. And Patterson is batting on leg stump, then sort of... It's not exactly backing away outside leg stump, but he's sort of leaning backwards, trying to drive on the up. He's missed that by a country mile, and Sam Curran, I think, just needs to get the odd one straight, I think, and I don't think Dane Patterson with his wonky teeth will last too long. Somehow he's survived his first
I think we're being rather toothish there.
5 balls in Test cricket. South Africa 209 for 9, having restarted at 208 for 6.
Talking of teeth, I had 2 teeth out last Monday.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I know.
Feeling better? It's all.
I mean, I feel remarkably good.
They weren't your front teeth, obviously.
No, no, the back, top one. So both molars. One was a wisdom tooth, I think. Anyway, they whipped them out.
I had all 4 of my wisdom teeth out in one go.
Very
And I
wise.
did literally, under general anaesthetic.
I might have to save up for that.
I did literally wake up with a bruised chest, and I thought, why is my chest hurting if you took my teeth out?
Oh God!
And that was, it's what you think. They were literally, yes. He said, we had our foot, well, somebody had our foot on your chest at one point.
Well, I was going to have sedation, and then I couldn't have sedation, so I had to do it with just a local. More of that later, listeners.
Broad round the wicket to the left-hander, beats Kisa Rabada. Broad, that was nice. That wasn't quite the celeb appeal, but he didn't turn around to the umpire to appeal. He sort of looked towards his skipper and said, "Was that out?" He sort of stuck a finger up sheepishly. I think Rabada missed it by a distance.
You look like
Through to the
Albus
keeper, there is
Dumbledore
no
giving a
run.
lecture.
We've got a slip and a gully, a backward point, an extra cover, a mid-off, a mid-onset partway back, a short leg a little bit deeper than a regular short leg, and 2 men back on the hook. They're not exactly giving him the single, but they would not be unhappy if Kisa Rabada took the single. Put it that way. Broad in, round the wicket, a full delivery and a little bit of swing. And Stuart Broad can't believe how that's missed the outside edge. Rabada trying to drive on the up, not learning the lessons of Philander and De Kock, who are far ahead of him in terms of their batting prowess. A lovely delivery from Broad.
It just looks like the sort of pitch, and this morning, the sort of pitch, conditions, and Broad's rhythm where he could bowl one of those spells. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of
but
come
obviously
too
they're 9
late for
down,
it to be
so
one of those spells.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
he has bowled beautifully this morning. The seam position there was glorious. Into the left-hander and away. Kisa Rabada smiles approvingly. Oh, beaten again, Stuart Broad. He looks out to the umpire.
Try one at the stumps, maybe.
As though to say, how'd that miss? Slightly too short, maybe, so the seam movement takes it past the bat. Rabada on that occasion, I think, didn't quite follow it as much as he has done, but this is a lot of fun, but I'm really not sure what is going on.
What is going off out there?
What is going on? I do not know what is going off out there.
Alex DeFale, or Fire, or DeFile.
DeFeffel.
Has had 4 messages retracted on YouTube. Don't know why.
Ooh. He's deleted them
But
himself.
hello to you anyway.
4th ball of the over. KG finally lays bat on one, and he almost holes out to Mark.
Holes out.
I think he has holed out to Mark Wood. Sorry, there was such a lack of celebration from Mark Wood that I wasn't quite sure what had happened. But KG Rabada, after missing 3 in a row, has finally laid bat on one, and he's just chipped it straight down the throat of Mark Wood at mid-off. Broad ends with 3 for 30, having not taken a wicket before this morning. An absolute capitulation this morning from South Africa, who started at 206 for 8, and after 4.5 overs, 209 all out, trailed by 290, and surely England will enforce the follow-on.
Go OUT the window, go OUT the window, go OUT the window, 'cause OUT spells out.
Great planning and execution from England this morning, but that was an absolute abjection of a batting display from South Africa this morning.
Boucher looks cross, doesn't he?
Yeah, he would do. And Faf looked pretty mean and moody as well. Let me get through some tweets and then we'll discuss the
go for it,
merits
mate.
of following on or not. Anna Forsyth says Faf highlighted something in his leadership book immediately after the De Kock wicket. Big mood. Anna also said Stephen Finn is a genius. Fact. Mog has a question without notice. Given he's an actual real musician, why doesn't Roger Pineapple ever do any? I think we're talking jingles. Spit the Dog says 1,000 pardons. Been drinking Coors Light for the last 6 hours, hence the obscure tweets.
I'm sorry.
Ivor the Engine is enjoying all the swift wickets. Pishtikuf. Okay.
Joins the steam.
Joins the steam, yes. And it was Idris the Dragon. Gits and Grats says, good morning to you, Gits and Grats. It's too early in the morning to be scratch mixing jingles. That's one for you, Grubby. Although it comes with a smiley face, and I've got to be honest, I was very impressed.
Well, I think all of them were justified, weren't they?
Yeah, they were all very good. Anna Forsyth says, I'm a huge Joss Butler fan, and I want folks to keep for England, even at the expense of Butler's test place. Joss is a great batsman, but he's out of form.
Yeah.
Here's hoping all these Surrey players in the England team sink them in the championship. Fair enough, Anna. I'll go along with that. And Dan De Castro is with us again, I'm delighted to say. Getting used to your company, Dan, and enjoying it on YouTube. England and the British fans must feel they're dreaming. 1 wicket away. Well, obviously now it's not 1 wicket away from not even having to discuss the follow-on.
I mean, it was a ruthless kill from England this morning, bowled
It
that
was.
really good full length that we were talking about earlier on.
But South Africa, I think, they didn't exactly shoot themselves in the foot, but they loaded the gun.
Yeah, I mean it was tame, wasn't it? It appeared to be there was no sort of stomach for the fight. Maharaj's pull was possibly the worst shot we saw this morning, but even the expansive drives from both de Kock and Philander early on was not what was required. And then a really tame sort of lob to mid-off from KG Rabada. So no wonder the management and captain were looking so askance and cross.
And Stuart Broad has taken a threefer. He was economical yesterday, but with minimal threat. Obviously, Dominic Best, the star yesterday, 31 overs, 12 maidens, 5 for 51, not required this morning. Sam Curran, 11 overs, 2 maidens, 1 for 32. Mark Wood, who bowled a fun and a very fast couple of spells, 11 overs, 4 maidens, none for 31. Bowled, I think, better than those figures suggest. Joe Denley, 4 overs, 1 maiden, none for 10. Joe Root, 11 overs, 4 maiden, none for 25. Ben Stokes, 5 overs, 1 maiden, 1 for 26. Dismissed Anrich Nokia yesterday, the one wicket.
Crucial wicket, as it turned out. Yeah.
England have enforced the follow-on. That didn't take long.
No, I mean it would have been a perplexing decision had England not done so.
Yeah, I think most of the time you don't really need to enforce the follow-on in most circumstances.
It's time in the game now, isn't it?
But yeah.
Under 2 days left, and with the possibility of more showers. I mean, it looks a bit drier today than the second half of yesterday. So hopefully we get more or less full days played today. But you never know. And also the breaks that have been enforced and the overnight break mean that there's no excuse really for the bowlers, he said harshly, as a man who wasn't a bowler. But
and then of course you've got South Africa reeling from what they've done to themselves this morning.
Well, we know England have definitely enforced the follow-on. The only niggling doubt I have, and I maybe just be excessively cautious, is that forfeits the opportunity to bowl last. But they have got plenty of runs to play with, so 290, of course, the deficit. So I think on balance, it's the right thing to do.
I don't really think England can lose the game from here unless South Africa score incredibly quickly for kind of 4 sessions.
I think this enforcing of the follow-on and this absolute surrender from South Africa's lower order has timed itself quite nicely for a change. Paul will shift into my chair to take you through the first part of South Africa's second innings. If you're just joining us this morning, you've missed a bit. South Africa started 206 for 6 and then lost 4 for 1 in 4.5 overs. 3 of them bowled, 1 of them simply and tamely, as Grubby said, pushed to mid-off. South Africa bowled out for 209, trailed by 290. England enforced the follow-on. So yeah, Paul will take over from me on ball by ball. Tony and I will jump out. Jason Hiscox will take over in tweets, and Steve Bones Jones will take over on the jingles.
All right.
The best things in life are free. Just like Gorilla Commentary, we need money. That's what I want. /Gorilla Cricket. We need money. I don't like the BBC. I prefer Gorilla Commentary. I want money. $20 for the archive. That's what I want. Or just buy a t-shirt.
Yep, England have wrapped up the last 4 wickets of the South Africa innings in double quick time this morning. As Knuckle mentioned before, the South Africa score wheezed from 206 for 6 to 209 all out. Some pretty injudicious stroke play from the South African lower order, and some excellent bowling from Stuart Broad and little Sammy Curran. I've been joined, it's Grubby here by the way, the central missionary position. Been joined by, as Knuckle called him, Steve Too Tall for Twitter Jones. Hello Steve, how are you?
Good morning everybody.
Not the Sex Pistols guitarist,
No,
but
indeed
our
not,
very own
no.
Steve Jones. And in the tweet seat, it's Jason G. Hiscox. Hello, Jace.
Hello. Shall I run through a
It's
couple
Dave Wood, apparently, you've got to start with.
Yes,
Those
I know.
messages. Yep, all right.
He said, well, that's been a sedate start to the day. It certainly has. An absolutely ridiculous set of shots from South Africa.
Credit to the England bowlers, but
Yes,
also
but
no credit at all
but
to
not
South
much
African
credit
batsmen.
at all, because South Africa pretty much handed it to them on a plate. I wonder what on earth was being said in the South African changing room before play started.
I wonder what's being said in that dressing room right now. Some stern words, I should imagine.
Our own Roger McCann is with us. He says,
"Hello, Roger.
Morning, dudes. This will be over in time for you to hop over to St Kitts, right?"
To what? To where?
To St Kitts, where
Oh.
Ireland are playing West Indies.
In another T20, isn't it?
Listen, if we bowl them out in a session, what time is that game on?
I don't know. There's lots of other
Soon.
games on as well. I mean, there's India-Australia has started.
Yeah, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. England have
Yes.
10 wickets to take, and it might take the rest of this day and possibly some tomorrow as well. We'll see.
Beijing Duck says, just woke up, rolled over and switched on the radio. I've never been so pleased to wake up to a bed full of gorillas. Oh, that's a horrible thought.
Terrible.
What
Matthew
a
music.
lie-in. And Spangling Side says, what ho, chaps? I was sitting at my PC as the first wicket fell and stayed put for the remainder of this morning. Do I have to stay here for South Africa's second innings?
Yes, please.
Keep it locked on Gorilla. Now, for those of you watching on Crick Tracker and the other visual media that we have available, I noticed when I was sitting in that seat over there, the jingle chair, that Knuckle was using a microphone that was, I can only describe it as dressed in a cricket jumper, which I've maintained here. Don't really know what that is.
Oh, right.
But there we are. The miniature cricket.
Do we have to continue that?
We don't have to.
Well, I will, because I'm on BBB next. So,
Well, I've decided to though.
yes.
It's a miniature cricket jumper.
It's brought England plenty of fortune this morning. I don't see why we
Yeah,
should change
yeah.
it.
I'm quite liking it.
That's clearly the missing link in the world dominance of English cricket.
What is?
The sock.
This cricket.
No, it's a mini jumper.
Yeah, it's a miniature cable knit. Feels reassuring in the right hand.
Some shout outs to Quick Tracker. Lala Sudimanian says hi. Mohammed Dawood, Ali Dawood says hello. Lord Chief says good luck, more grace. And Arshad Ali gives us a score from the India-Australia match where Australia are 26 for 1 after 4 overs. And I'll just look on YouTube as well.
Now, presumably, England are going to open the bowling with the two who've been in action this morning. They're already warmed up. Then they've got a new cherry in their hand. It's going to be Broad and Curran, you'd think.
Well, I don't
wouldn't
think you're going to get the ball out of Broad's hand. They might
No.
change Curran, but I can't see any particular
Well,
reason why you would do.
I
so,
wouldn't. Yeah, I think I was having this chat with a mate of mine who was questioning why Mark Wood wasn't opening the bowling. I was sort of thinking, well, Curran, if he is going to get movement, it's more likely to be when the ball is new and he becomes a bit more toothless with the older ball, I think, if it doesn't swing. Whereas Wood is there primarily, I think, to introduce some pace with that older ball.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got some new batsmen who have come to the crease, the South African openers.
Yeah, Jason and I were just discussing Wood and his first spell. I was quite impressed with it actually in the South African first innings. Just given the long break he's had, I thought he looked really sharp.
Yeah, well, apparently, I
and
mean, the
quick.
reason he's been selected, he was tearing it up in the nets, wasn't he, for England?
And his batting,
yeah,
I've never seen anything like.
Poor old Keshav Maharaj. I don't think he knew what hit him.
well, indeed,
Often.
indeed.
And, I mean, he hit something, was it 5 of the 8 sixes in the innings?
I think
in his innings?
I think he took his international tally of sixes from 8 to 13 in the one.
So we'll jingle up the relevant parties shortly, but we're going to start the innings. 3 slips in place. It is Stuart Broad who is opening the bowling, and Milan is onto the front foot and turning it into the leg side, and there is no run. We're underway in South Africa's second innings, following on 290 behind.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From the under 910s, Northerns and Titans.
Broad's in again. Good line and length just outside the off stump and allowed to pass through to the keeper by Milan. A good leave in the end, but it wasn't too far away from the off stump.
Here's Mr. Broad.
What would make Broad walk?
If his stumps were knocked down,
What would make Broad walk?
caught 5 feet off the
What
ground.
would make Broad walk?
If he trod on his
What would
stumps,
make Broad walk?
if God was one of the
What
arms,
would make Broad walk? Broad walk.
And the and who is in again to the crease outside the off stump, bit wider this time, and this one is allowed to pass through comfortably by Milan. We've seen close-ups of the England fans, many of them in the ground there at Port Elizabeth, and I'm pretty sure they're singing Jerusalem, because I think I saw some woman miming the
That would have been
spears or
twice
whatever.
in, 15, 20 minutes?
Oh
Or
yeah,
something?
yeah, at least.
At least. It'll be one for the start of the day and one for the start of the innings.
Yeah, yeah. Well, possibly one for the start of the inning, the start of actual play, and then the start of this inning. They might have sung it 3 times. It's probably a bit tiresome. This is straighter, it's on the stumps, and Milan is forward in defence, playing it up to mid-on, and there is no run. Applause from Captain Root to his bowler.
Spit the dog.
Yep.
Has
Nice.
tweeted in, he says, what a start to the day.
Yes.
South African batting suffering from the tolly trots?
You said that like in the manner of an excited dog, which I quite like, because...
I'm not
that's
sure.
what
And
he
Ben
is.
Thapper talking about Kurgiza Ravada watching Stu Borden, taking notice, saying, why? He's had his last bowl of the series.
Yes.
So he's assuming an innings defeat here.
Comes wide of the crease this time, Broad, angles one in towards Milan's off stump. He's equal to it, defending it out to point, and there's no run.
I think South Africa will bat very differently the second time round than they did the first time.
Well,
I'm kind of expecting them to dig in and grind their way to just past the score, probably.
Well, I'm not so sure, Jace. I think they're a fairly average test side at the moment. I can see them capitulating once more. I know this pitch is relatively blameless, but I'm just not sure collectively they have the stomach for the fight. This
Ooh.
is outside the off stump, beats him on the outside edge this time as it's through to the keeper. So a decent first over, a maiden from Broad.
Sadly, no wicket. That's a bit unusual this morning.
Yes.
Yeah,
Slipping.
what's going on?
What's going
Standards,
on?
please.
Think
Dilbert
that's a
says,
police. Oh.
what I really like about our South Africans' current batting lineup is their willingness to really guts it out.
I mean, that is Elgar's natural game, certainly, so I expect him to apply himself.
Nokia demonstrated that in
he
Oodles.
he had
Yeah.
a fairly
Didn't
filthy
he?
look
So-
in the changing room
He
as
did
he
not
was
look
watching
happy
out
this
on other
morning.
people just throwing wickets away after all his hard work yesterday.
So let's put it in context. Nokia batted for the equivalent of 22, 23 overs for
more
his
than
18
that.
runs. Well, it's 130 odd balls, wasn't it? So
Yes, it was 3 hours of play.
So that's 22 or 3 overs. Anyway, and he's seen much of his good work undone by some of his supposedly more talented batting colleagues this morning. That's
But
cricket, though.
feckless.
Yeah, so it is going to be little Sammy Corrin opening from the duck pond end. And he's going to be bustling into the crease now. Left arm over the wicket, a straight ball, and Elgar with his first ball just defends it up towards mid-on, and there's no run.
And
No, it's, Jingle Sam.
Sam Corrin. What's his distinguishing feature? Sam Corrin. He starts from Zimbabwe. Sam Corrin. And he's beloved by Liz Yates. Sam Corrin.
And Jonathan Lowe replies to Katie Scott at Italy North End, sneaking around quietly, saying,
South Africa are underway as he gets a ball on the hips, turns it around the corner. It's going to run all the way down to long leg for one of these.
yeah, sneaking around quietly around the house, trying not to wake anyone up, being ruined completely by Nakul Pandey's absolute explosion of noise. That's Minnie says. He says, you're terrible at sneaking around anyway.
So Jonathan and Katie are basically having a domestic conversation live on Twitter. Tune in, folks.
And Genrose says, there I was, braiding my hair.
Oh, this one almost sneaks through the gate as Elgar, caught in two minds, eventually tries to lunge forward. It just takes him high up on that front leg, and he takes a hand off the bat. Pretty ugly all round. There's not going to be a review or anything like that, but he was certainly undone by that one.
Here's Mr. Elgar. Just outside.
Yeah, just did a bit off the seam, that one, and took the inside edge and then onto his pad. So it's going to be a test for these batsmen. A similar ball, this one outside the off stump, and this time he gets bat and pad closer together and defends it up the track, and there's no run.
Yes, Genrose said, there I was, braiding my hair. That'll take a long time.
Goodness me, yes.
Minding my own business, and hark, a flurry of wickets. What a delight.
Yes. Yeah, it's been exciting this morning, Jen. I hope you're well. Braiding and all.
Marty Q says, good morning, Gurus. Very much enjoying my train journey from Malaga to Madrid, although the other passengers are looking confused at my frequent fist pumping and raised index fingers.
Barcelona aren't playing, are they?
Malaga to Madrid, I'm sure.
Yeah, it
that's
must be
probably
nice. It's a nice
quite-
drive, actually. I like the drive.
Yeah, nice
I've
train
never
journey
done
as
it by
well.
train.
So we have two slips in place now. Broad had three, for some reason just the two for Sam Curran. He has to explore that outside off line though. He did stray earlier in this over, which allowed Elgar to get off the mark. This is slightly straighter, and this time it's off the outside edge. It's going to run down towards third man. I don't think that's going to be cut off. It is not indeed. It's the second 4 of the over. This one a little bit streaky.
With the super shatter, super shatter, super shatter, super shatter, super shatter, rocka, rocka, super shatter.
And Harry the Hadida, at Hadida Harry says, this is a very optimistic view of it for South Africa. He says, go out and get out as soon as. Get top order batsmen back in, make 400, bowl England out for 99 on day 5.
It's a tactic.
It's a possibility. It's not a huge possibility, I would have thought.
Curran is in again. It's 2 straight. Well, in fact, it's almost down leg side. This time he gets away with it, though, as it's fielded by, I think that is Dom Sibley at square leg. Yep. And that is the end of the over. Went for 8, that one. So South Africa 8 without loss after 2.
I think Grits and Grats is giving us a tweet about our sartorial elegance, saying you can get little blazer tie combinations for mics apparently, and then just tweets us a picture of Athers and Gatting with the ties, mics connected.
Is that
to
with the
their
MCC garb on?
Yep, I think so.
Yeah, in the days before Mike Gatting's face got wider than
and redder
the Red Sea,
and
redder than the Red Sea.
And of course, that says a flurry of wickets, Finny in the Sky Studio, a lovely gin and tonic at my side, GC on comms. What could be better?
I can't think of many things. 3 slips back in place here for Stuart Broad, who starts a new over to Peter Malan. Forward in defence, plays it out on the offside. Broady's got that spring in his step, hasn't he?
He has indeed, hasn't he?
Yep.
Can't wait to get back to his mark.
So I hope he's probably taken that rhythm that he established first thing this morning, and the England bowlers were straight into their rhythm, weren't they? Straight on the money.
Well, they bowled some cracking balls. I mean, there's some beautiful seamers, leg cutters, off cutters, all sorts going on there.
Yeah.
Good batsmen would have struggled this morning.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it was certainly too good for the rabbits in the headlights that we saw. This one just takes Malan high up on the pad and drops down in front of him.
He bowled a beautiful leg cutter to Malan at the end of that last over. That was a corker.
Yeah.
A data bowl, I think.
Yeah, weather forecast looks cloudy. Apparently we've got a better than even chance of rain at some point. But it's holding out at the moment. Frustrating day yesterday, wasn't it? With that, is that right? Fine rain that you can be out in. Gets you wetter than you think.
It's like being in the Welsh mountains, isn't it?
I wouldn't know. This is just outside the off stump from Broad. Good length delivery. Malan shoulders, arms.
It's always wet.
Yeah, it's like the Old Trafford thing, isn't it? If you can see the Pennines, it's going to rain. If you can't see them, it's already raining. Or something similar. So Malan has yet to get off the mark. He's faced 9 deliveries. Elgar at the other end has 2 boundaries behind square from the previous Sammy Curran over. And those are the only 8 runs that have been scored thus far. Broad has yet to concede a run in this innings. This, again, he's not going to concede a run as it's defended to point from the crease by Malan.
I think Broady's sporting a new haircut as well, isn't it? It's not quite so foppish and floppish
he's always been a bit boy band, I think, Stuart Broad.
It's much more sort of city gent now.
He'd probably wear a pinstripe quite well, wouldn't he?
Oh,
nice
yeah.
pinstripe briefcase,
with his
bowler hat.
height like what I have got.
Yes. Are you about the same height, 6'5"-ish?
I think so, yeah. He might be a little bit taller. But,
yeah. He's in now again, a bit wider of the crease, slightly slower and floatier outside the off stump. I think he attempted a slower ball there.
He's a damn
wasn't
bowler,
straight
I
enough.
know that.
It's through to the keeper, and there's no run. Have you been a bowler in your time? Probably asked you.
I was when I was a whippersnapper,
Yeah.
but I gave up at 11 because I hurt my back and then
bless.
bowled 4 balls on my return and it went again. I thought, sod that, I'll just concentrate on the batting.
Okay, yeah. Long levers. Middle order, swisher?
No, I was an opener.
Opener. Oh, good man. So was I, for a time. Broad close to the stumps this time, just outside the off stump. Once more, Malan is shouldering arms through to the keeper. That's the end of that over. Second maiden in a row for Broad, and Malan still yet to get off the mark, and South Africa are 8 without loss after 3. Any tweets there, Jace?
Yep, Jen Rose comes back and says, my sincerest felicitations to Steve, Grubby and Jason.
Well, likewise back to you, Jen. How's that braiding going? Have you been at it for a few hours now? Still got a few hours to go? It's a long old task when you have hair. If you're not familiar with Jen Rose, she has incredibly long hair. It goes all the way down to, what, thigh length or something?
Oh, we said knee yesterday.
Knee, yeah. It takes a lot of looking after, I should warrant. I once went a year without a haircut when I was a young man.
And did it reach your neck?
It was very good. Didn't look after it. Very many split ends. Curran starts a new over. Close to the wicket. Wow, this is defended back to him. He takes it in his left hand and wangs it back towards the stumps. Not sure Elgar was out of his crease, but great sign of intent there from little Sammy.
Did you see that report this week about things discovered in men's beards?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it was really quite unpleasant bugs.
No, I wouldn't.
Bugs that might more commonly be found in the toilet was the sort of the general description.
Delightful. I've never put a bauble in my beard though, so for that I think I deserve some credit. He just strays down onto leg stump again, and he's able to turn it around the corner quite comfortably. It races to the long leg boundary for another one of these.
The number of the day. Who could ask for more? The number of the day is 4.
He's looking to attack the stumps here, Curran, which means that occasionally he does just drift onto that leg stump, and he can be expensive when that happens, but it's because he is looking to take wickets, and for that
why not?
He must be applauded. Well played by Elgar.
At Bailey's Tricycle says, me an hour ago. No, dear, of course I don't mind taking the kids to the park for a bit. Cricket? Well, I'm sure that not a lot will happen for the first few overs. Doesn't matter if I miss those. Me now. I'm not moving an inch from this cricket for the rest of the day.
Take him to the park again. Full delivery on middle and off stump. Elgar lunging forward and playing it up towards mid-on. There's no run.
And Lawrence Jameson does a bit of self-diagnosis here. He says, watching the test, Australia, India one day and Heat renegades BBL simultaneously. Might have a slight dose of cricketitis.
Enjoy your day. Sounds
it's
ideal.
It's addictive.
It's what a Sunday's for, isn't it?
Curran at the top of his mark. What's he going to bowl this time? He's into his run-up to the crease now. He's got a leg slip or a leg gully in play now as well. This is defended
firmly.
Short extra by Elgar. Yeah, full face of the bat, maker's name.
That's kind of setting a ball for bad bowling, I think, isn't it? Because he's gambling on the flick down the leg side being in the air there, where he shouldn't really be bowling along that line anyway.
Yeah. Well, if they were looking to stop that flow of runs, then maybe they'd have him on the boundary, but maybe they're thinking that it's a viable wicket-taking option at the moment. He's in again, just on off stump, and defended studiously up to mid-off by Elgar, who squats and kneels exaggeratedly as he plays that defensive stroke. So the runs have all come from boundaries behind square, 2 down to long leg and 1 slightly streaky to third man.
This is sort of made for Dean Elgar, isn't it? It's what, that nuggety.
He's nuggety. That's a good word to describe him. Yes,
fighting person. He's not going to give up his wicket at all easily.
That's why in Cape Town he was doubly cross with himself, because he hoiked one in the air, didn't he? Very unlike him. 2 slips close together. That leg slip or gully we've spoken about. This one, however, is played firmly to mid-on, and there's no run. It's the end of that over. The score remains 12 without loss.
More shout-outs from Cricket Tracker. Acharya Aman Shastri is with us,
Hello,
MRR Joy is
morning,
with us, and
morning.
Savesh Mishra is with us.
Hello to all of you chums. Thank you for being there. Thank you for being with us. Say something interesting to us, why not? We're here to, to receive your views.
Dan DeCastro on YouTube says, the tweet you read, get 400 bowling without for 99, is the most unrealistic I ever heard. South Africa took a full day to score 200. Now the run rate going to be double that? And he said, plus also rain today, 50% today and more tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I did say it was optimistic.
Yes, you did. Malan's going to get off the mark with a sharp single, a slower delivery just outside his off stump, which he dabs down towards point. And the 2 opening batsmen on the same wavelength, and they complete that run fairly comfortably. Malan has a nice luxuriant looking beard under the lid there. Gives the thumbs up to his partner. Thanks for helping me get off the mark there, bud. Might get a word from the umpire there, running up the middle of the pitch, although they'll only be damaging their own chances because it's unlikely they're going to bowl again, or certainly not in the near future, being so far behind. 277 is the deficit at the moment, as the South Africa second inning score has moved on to 13 without loss. Sky are apologising for the poor quality of pictures. Haven't seen an apology for the poor quality of commentating there, which they might also issue. Stick with us here, folks. You're in the right place. South Africa are following on.
Just a grey day there, isn't it, in Port Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's like that
Sort
in Manchester if you can't see the Pennines. type
Indeed,
stuff, isn't it?
sort of air quality you might more expect in Sydney and the surrounding areas. That terrible bushfires that are going on. This is on the pads of Dean Elgar. The first ball that Broad has bowled to him, he'll be annoyed because he's got him off strike straight away as the ball runs behind square on the leg side, and they come through for a run. Actually, he must have got a bit of bat on that.
Some shout-outs from Facebook Live.
Whoop whoop whoop.
Rahul Nations is with us. Syed Riaz said Masha Allah, and Roger McCann, our own Roger McCann, has joined us and is watching
Hello,
our
Syed.
antics.
And hello, was it Rashal, the other person?
Syed Riaz.
What was the first one you read out?
Ravel.
Ravel. That was Ravel, wasn't it? And hello, Rog. Good morning,
And
Rog.
Torval and Dean, do you remember them?
I do.
Oh,
Course I do,
yeah.
yeah. 1984, their great year, wasn't it? They
I believe
Sports
so.
Personality of the Year jointly that year. This is defended from the crease by Milan up to mid-on. He goes for a mini walk towards square leg, comes back to his crease. Seeing a close-up, is that the groundsman? Might
Must
be the
be, yeah.
groundsman. I think he might be telling his ground staff to get their jackets on.
Get ready, yeah.
Because we might be in for a rain break here, folks, but we're still playing at the moment. Keep it locked. Broad has just gone for his first run in this over, so he's just conceded the one run halfway through his third over. South Africa are 14 without loss following on. This is outside the off stump. Milan shoulders arms. Applause from Stokes. Slip.
We have more news from Alan Forsyth about the India-Australia game.
Oh yeah?
Steve Smith has run out as captain. Finch is not happy. To which Alan Forsyth just goes, lol.
He's what as captain, sorry?
Run him out.
Oh, run him out.
Australia 46 for 2.
That is quite
Now
easy.
50 for 2.
Milan has one run from his 15 deliveries so far. Broad thundering in, 3 slips in place. This almost finds
That
the
turned
outside
around,
edge.
didn't it?
Yeah,
Ooh.
he's looking to play that straight, and it just shaped away from him. Played it pretty well in the end.
yeah.
Soft hands, but with one of those, the bat was almost coming down from gully, but he kept it down. It trickles down towards gully. No run. And he just rolled his fingers over
he
that.
did,
It was like
yeah.
a leg cutter that he bowled. Interesting. I think that says a lot about the pitch. It's perhaps a slightly slower pitch, that he's bowling a delivery like that so early in the piece with the new cherry. Then he comes again. 3 slips, a short leg. It's just out
Well
of
fielded.
just out of reach of that short leg fielder, who was Ollie Pope, diving away to his left as it's turned towards the mid wicket, and there is no run. That's the end of the over. 14 without loss.
Hattie Atkinson on Quick Tracker says, loving the Sesame Street counts 4. Happy to stay in
Yes.
bed listening to you, but can someone please bring me a cooked breakfast?
Mr. Bishop's a good cooker here, so
I tell you what, when people mention food on our social media platforms, and I'm sitting here, it always makes me hungry. I would absolutely murder a cooked breakfast right now. Might have to go out and get some food soon.
Well, we might have an opportunity fairly soon
Yeah,
if
yeah.
the weather closes in.
Are we seeing the odd drop of rain on the cameras? The wind appears to be picking up.
Oh, they always pick out the same...
Very smiley camera woman there in Port Elizabeth, getting a bit of a thumbs down as if to say, I think the weather is closing in. Their version of old Father Time there. He was actually more like a dragon, the weather vane. Elgar is lunging forward to this delivery from Sam Curran. Inside half of the bat, the ball rolls out through square leg, and they come through for a single.
And Forsyth says, you aren't wrong about the poor Sky comms. Even just watching highlights, I cringe every time I hear KP.
It's quite an annoying voice, isn't he, KP?
He's quite up there, isn't it?
Yeah. Why were you texting the opposition's dressing room?
'Cause they're
my
mates.
mates. Which we've seen that clip about
110
times now, haven't we? Utterly unrepentant about
KP,
his disgraceful behaviour.
Yes.
Yeah. He only allowed it to be made because they put the word genius in there. This is defended 2 short extra by Milan. And there
Although
is no
from a
run.
cricketing perspective, I have to say, when he was on
Oh,
song,
mate, yeah, he was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes,
Him
I
and-
always summarise KP as brilliant cricketer, flawed individual.
Often the way, isn't it?
When he was taking on Shane Warne that Ashes series. It was
Yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely. I mean, the word genius is
Bandied around.
Is well used. It's well used, though. I mean, he was something very, very special. An integral part of that team that went to #1 in the world, and subject of the excellent sport documentary film, The Edge, which Knuckle surprisingly told me he has not yet seen, but you must. This is defended into the offside by Milan, and there is no run. Now, only 2 GPL entries so far, people, so come on, get your collective fingers out. Only one, that's Knuckles writing, only one GPL entry so far. The pot started at 70 quid, so it's well worth watching. It's well worth entering. Get on to GorillaCricket.com, go to competitions. You have to register if you've not already done so. For the princely sum of £1, guess the total number of runs that have been scored in today's play. And you have the chance to win that money. This is a full delivery. It's dug out by Milan. Played up to mid-off where Broad does the fielding. And there's no run. We have a new Patreon as well, Steve Hall.
Welcome.
So join Steve at patreon.com/Gorilla Cricket, and you can make a monthly donation to us. Help us keep bringing you this marvellous thing that is Gorilla Cricket. You also get the many podcasts that we are producing these days. You get them a day earlier than anyone else. This is a ball from over the wicket by the left armour, Sam Curran, across the bows of the right-handed Peter Milan, who defends it again into the offside. Adjusts his helmet, looks at the pitch. He's just studying concentration, the bearded Milan. And the score is 15 without loss. So yeah, 2 things for you to get on with there. 1, enter the GPL. Come on, we need more than this one paltry entry we have at the moment. 70 quid is the pot, or just over 70 quid. You stand to win by guessing the correct amount of, correct number of runs that are going to be scored in today's play totally, and then patreon.com/Gorilla Cricket to lend a more long-lasting financial present to Gorilla Cricket, and with the opportunity to get our content earlier than others. This is defended from the crease again by Milan up towards mid-on.
And also access to our archive.
Yes. Now I think if you are a Patreon, I think you can pay a one-off fee of 20 quid
per annum.
Per annum to get access to the archive. That's all the commentary we've done for the last 5 or 6 years in sound file form. All the jingles. I know many of you love our jingles, and you have access to the hundreds and hundreds of jingles that we have over the years. The What Would Make Broad Walk jingle, one of my favourites. The sweary Ben Stokes jingle, and many more.
A little shout out to the Horsham Hammers there. I'm quite impressed with that.
Yes.
Not the Hammers bit, but Horsham, because that's where I went to school.
Ah, Horsham in Sussex.
That's the one, yeah.
So I wonder if you have many West Ham fans in that area.
I didn't know any, I have to say, but
I think I saw.
I was a Tottenham fan. So.
Oh right. I think I saw Nottingham Forest, but from somewhere like Billericay, was it? It was really odd. You do see some strange flags out there from the travelling England fans.
Well, this might hasten the...
yes. Well, it's going to hasten something. It's certainly going to have an injection of speed as we have this equine man coming into the attack. He's going to start round the wicket to the left-handed Dean Elgar. He starts with one shoved down the arse.
And here's his jingle.
Do you know Mark Wood? Yes, he is an England bowler, quite good. And pretty quick. So just a normal guy. Of course. Except for just one thing. What? He thinks that he's a horse.
Right. What?
Yeah, so if you want to listen to that jingle at your leisure at any time, then pay 20 quid per annum for the archive. That really is an absolute steal for the amount of content that you have access to. And or go to patreon.com/Gorilla Cricket and lend your long-lasting financial support to us. We'd be forever grateful. Round the wicket is Wood again. This is a much better, straighter delivery. It jumps a bit on Elgar. He takes one hand off the bat, defends it into the offside.
Had a bit of spike in it, that ball.
It did.
Well, Elgar was the one that was most discomforted yesterday by Mark
88
Wood.
MPH, that one.
Yeah.
He's getting up there.
And so this is a good plan to get him on whilst he's on strike.
Yeah, it's only his...
Before the rain comes and deadens the pitch again.
Yeah, only his 14th or 15th test match this, Mark Wood.
Over 6-7 years?
Yeah, man has been plagued by injury. A man who hasn't played a game of cricket since the World Cup final 6 months ago. He's round the wicket again to Elgar. A bit fuller this time, and Elgar, again, he's on his toes playing it. It really is hurrying him noticeably. Defended to backward point, there's no run. He bowled that blistering, sort of well reported blistering sort of bowl off, didn't he, with Jofra Archer in the nets, which has convince the management that he was ready for
Yeah,
selection.
I think Joffa was being rested in case they'd get out of this with a draw, and therefore they need to go to Wanderers with a full-on pace attack.
His elbow isn't probably 100% at the moment.
No, they was walking around yesterday with his elbow in ice in a cling film wrap.
Here comes
delivered in
Horsey
drinks.
McHorseface. One slip, a gully, a short leg.
Oh,
This beats Elgar on the outside edge. Really has been hurrying him this whole over. And that time he's not able to lay a bat or a glove on it. I can't tell whether there's a little bit of fine rain in the air or whether it's just the poor quality of Sky's pictures, for which they've already apologised.
Gary Murphy says, "Oh God, not more rain. Was up until 2:30 for the washout instant kits last night. Just give me some cricket."
Yeah, it's not too much to ask, is it?
And Genro says there might be still some of those pastries I made in the freezer.
Really?
Check.
Oh, I will.
There was one in the oven that had been in there for about a week.
I won't be checking that one.
No, that was chucked.
Good, glad to hear it.
And there is ginger in the fridge as well, I noticed. So.
What, root ginger?
Root ginger, yes. Joe Root Ginger.
This is defended again up on his toes by Elgar. This is what it can do to you as well. He's really anxious to get off strike here. Thinks about a quick single.
They are going
There's
off.
going to be a break, everyone. That rain, which I was mentioning before, is going to make them go off. Tony comes in the door and immediately
reverses
turns
fast.
smartly on his heel. Tony the Rain Bishop.
Like watching a juggernaut turn on a sixpence.
So with the score on 15 without loss, we are, I'm afraid, folks, going to have another break. Frustration continues if you're an England fan or if you're a fan of cricket generally. Hopefully we'll be back in due course, but that rain...
Let's hope it's not
it's
less
just
a
that
short
fine
break.
stuff, isn't it? It's that fine stuff that just sort of hangs in the air. It needs some rain to blow it through.
Some wind to blow it through.
Some wind to blow it through. Don't bring any more rain to blow it through. The covers have quite rapidly come onto the pitch there in Port Elizabeth. It's probably, I would call it, what do you call it, a steady drizzle more than anything. Close-up of Don Bess, England.
Don Bess is looking somewhat peeved because, of course, the rain is deadening the pitch for his spin as well as for the seamers.
Yeah, he'll be, well, just hoping to get back on the pitch and then at some point the sun to come out and dry it out and he can play a part. You would think that the spinner would play a part. Played a big part, of course, in bowling South Africa out yesterday. Took the first 5 wickets, did Don Bess, his first 5 for in-test cricket. One of the youngest England bowlers to get a 5 for in this form of the game. Certainly one of the youngest England spinners. The first England spinner to take the first 5 in a first innings of a test match. For ages, the first England spinner to take 5 for in any test innings. The first 5 wickets since Derek Underwood in 1975. So all sorts of stuff going on, and he, like the rest of his England colleagues, will be desperate to get back out there. But at the moment, we have steady drizzle. So, Jace, you want to read out some social media messages, and then we might have a little break ourselves, I think.
Christian Grad says, hoping England can bring home the bacon, certainly egging them on. South Africa have been toast so far today, and certainly in a pickle.
I'm really
it's
hungry.
bread and butter for Broad & Co. They're hungry for it this morning. Now you've crammed so many puns in
who was
there. Grits and Grats.
Grits and Grats.
That's a lot of very foodie puns.
Yes, making my stomach rumble even more.
Anne Fontai says, the horse snort at the end of the wood jingle elevates it from good to great. It certainly does.
Yeah.
That's all up to date on
Okay.
Twitter. Let's have a look on the other media. Vikash Punia joins us from Quick Tracker, but
Hello,
I imagine
Vikash.
hopefully will stay with us whilst we're in the interregnum.
Or break, as Steve points out.
And Dan De Castro has a couple of things on YouTube. He says, so that's why they call you grubby, eh? Lol, not the track top, but hands-on food.
Hands-on food? What?
In that you will see pie, eat pie.
I mean, I'm slightly more discerning. If I find a bit of pastry that's been in an oven here for a week, I probably would demur.
And he says, in terms of his favourite sports, cricket, then association football, then tennis are his favourite sports. But how bloody rain can affect results is depressing.
Yeah.
Poms deserve this likely win, but rain may kill it.
It might.
On-off
still
showers until 4 p.m. Oh dear.
Yeah, so we might be in and out like a fiddler's elbow. But bear with us, everyone. We'll bring you all the action as it unfolds. Steve, are you able to queue up any Oh, okay. Is that in there? Is it? All right. Is it the interview?
It is.
I think we need to turn down the crowd noise
We
in order to be
do.
able to hear that, don't we?
Our technical expert is rocking.
So yeah, crowd noise is gone. We're going to put the Paul Smith interview on with Tony Bishop, and we'll be back as soon as there's any further action in Port Elizabeth. See you later.
From Gloucestershire to Leicestershire, up into the stratosphere. Grab yourself a can of beer. Countyman, lend us an ear. From Arthurshire to Zubershire, even if you're a newbie. Welcome, welcome, welcome here. Welcome to Gorilla Share. Get out of bed and chair and head for here. Forget the spouse, kids, and career. Fish will bring some atmosphere. Endo's bite ain't worse than his Berkshire. From Warwickshire to Worcestershire, still around or disappeared. They're part of the discussion here. Welcome to Gorilla Share.
Welcome to Gorilla Share. It's common form to start interviews with cricketers with some career statistics. Let me assure you that today I'm with a former player who has some very good ones as part of the all-conquering Warwickshire side of the 1990s under Bob Woolmer. However, he holds the US Certificate of Appreciation for his groundbreaking work using cricket as a force for good with the gangs in the most notorious areas of Los Angeles. He advises the Prince's Trust, is a motivational speaker and broadcaster and a published author whose book, Wasted, was described by one reviewer thus: not so much a kiss and tell as kiss, have casual sex, get stoned, drunk, divorced, unemployed, homeless, penniless, and then tell. Although written 12 years ago, it is a rattling good read, but it also contains thought-provoking wisdom born out of experience. Life says its author is a work in progress. Life gave its author a second chance, which he continues to grab. Paul Smith.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for hosting us today, because we are here at Edgbaston in your room. So I'm welcoming you to our show. You are, in fact, our host. So
Welcome to my room.
Welcome to your room. Now, one of the themes that you recurs throughout the book is around confidence and purpose. You say it's something that you need in all aspects of life. Tell us just a little bit in your way of thinking about life and cricket, why you focused on so much on those two thoughts in the book.
Confidence and purpose. Well, from a sports perspective, that when you're confident and you understand your purpose, then that's probably when you'll get your best results. Or it's certainly when you'll be able to analyze how things are going and either put them right. You'll be able to put them right better if you have those two things, and if you're lacking in them, then you have to need to grasp them fairly quickly in order to turn that corner. I think in everyday life, the people that I've met who've lacked confidence and purpose needed the most guidance. Often that's the excluded. They could be of all age groups, and sometimes people driving around in the best cars, wearing the best suits, also lack confidence and purpose. So I think it's about identifying what you think your purpose is, what you think you can do to take things forward, and will make you and those around you more confident, and that would lead to a better future all round.
It's one of the things that, given the work you've done linked to cricket but imparting cricket, that I wanted to sort of talk to you about was, how do you think it comes to light in your activities now, and particularly how do you impart that to others?
If you talk about you talk about community work, and I think the more that you can give confidence to people, often people know what they actually want to do, but no one's actually sort of planted that seed in them that they actually can achieve that. And often the system will try and funnel you down the same places that everyone else is, because that ultimately comes down to figures. So if I were to turn around to you and say, right, I want you to go and work in an office for the rest of your life down the road, but you'll be there from 8:45 in the morning till 5:15. In many cases, I know that situation has been forced upon people because that's all about employment figures, when in fact I know that within 3 days they're going to be ringing me saying, this is the last thing on earth I think that I'm going to be able to do. So I would always say, don't put yourself in a situation where you know it's not going to work. I would always say, hang on a bit longer and try and find the opening that you're actually is going to fulfill you. It leads to a happier society.
So are you finding now that are you still involved in people development with cricket as the core of kind of your doing that, or have you moved beyond cricket just to where people development is the kind of the main raison d'etre for what you do?
I would it's probably in the last couple of years I've been more of an advisor, than a hands-on one. I'll give you an example of that. In the west end of Newcastle, my city of my birth, I got a pal who has done amazing work for the best part of 40 years within the community, most of it not really acknowledged. However, in more recent times, he's been involved with Chance to Shine right at the top. He wanted to put on an activity where it involved asylum seekers, the children of asylum seekers. It involved young kids who got too much time on their hands. Too much time has been taken up by police officers, community workers, the court systems, etc., etc. So it's costing the city of Newcastle an absolute fortune. And he picked my brains about work that I'd done in townships in Soweto, and townships such as Soweto under apartheid, and then how further down the road, say Bob Woolmer and I did a lot of work in townships during the dismantling of apartheid. So the art of communication, it wasn't just about bat and ball, it was about gaining confidence. It was about getting people to think differently, and where the outcomes had to be different. If you talk about working in places like Compton or South Central or Inglewood or Watson, places in the States, ultimately you're not looking to turn someone into the next Freddie Flintoff or Ian Botham, or obviously there's more recent versions of those guys. It's not about turning them into that. That would be a real bonus. It's about getting people to change their behaviour. So in the northeast of England, a guy called Russell Perry picked my brains. What have the outcomes got to be? I told him, if you want these outcomes, this is the sort of funding that you have to seek. You're not going to get sporting funding for it, because that's not what the initial target is going to be. Over a 2-year period, he's completely transformed a community in the West End of Newcastle where you're probably saving millions in court costs, etc., etc., etc. And in more recent times, Chance to Shine have jumped on the back of that. So it'll be seen to be a Chance to Shine project, but in theory, the guy that's actually done all the work is a guy called Russell Perry. So that's just one example.
Did it have a cricket connection prior to your involvement in terms of a project, or is it a community project that has embraced cricket along the way?
There was no project. There was no activity going on. He identified a part of the city where you would repeatedly read and hear about some pretty negative activity taking place, and he picked my brains as to whether I thought that was the sort of, because we know the city well, whether that was the sort of place where maybe some sort of activity should take place. So between the pair of us, we worked out what could take place, and then he did all the footwork himself. And as activities gain some sort of momentum, then what happens is, if you get a few people coming this week, then hopefully if you can it's about giving people a good time, making them understand that you are there for them, and maybe they'll bring a few more mates next week, and then maybe they'll bring a few more. You'll lose a few along the way, but by and large, what you do is you gain the confidence of people within that community. People will become aware of the fact that these young people are not involved in acts of crime as they were up until relatively recent. That will then attract the attention of police forces because they'll see that whatever's taking place is starting to work. You then get parents actually supporting it because they can see that their kids are not getting into trouble, and before you know it, within maybe 12 months, within 2 years, you've actually got a real hive of activity, and hopefully it's acknowledged, and thankfully for Russell it has been acknowledged.
Yeah, one of the things you talk a lot about in the book is how cricket as a game offers many opportunities to teach people skills that go way beyond cricket. I mean, you cite the example of simply communication skills and trust if you're two batsmen working together. And that seems to have been a consistent theme for your work in the UK with the Prince's Trust, and when you went to Los Angeles and worked in sort of, as you say, into Compton, Inglewood and South Central, and some of the Crips gangs, the worst gangs out there. What is it, do you think, that uniquely enables cricket to have that capacity?
Well, cricket will teach you how to work in pairs. It'll teach you how to understand team strategy. It'll improve maths. It'll teach. In life, lots of people look, but not many people see. With sport, or particularly cricket, it's very visual, and it's easy. If you're smart, you can teach people a lot just by saying, watch this, watch that. It makes people more observant. Cricket has so many, there's so much more to it than bat and ball. It teaches people patience. I think the key, if you talk about community activities and you talk about people who, in this day and age where most people are used to being able to get results with the blink of an eye, mobile phones or computers being a classic example. You Google something, the assumption is the answer is that it's absolutely correct. The thing with cricket is you can do absolutely everything right and still not get the results, and that actually teaches young people an awful lot.
Kind of fortitude and...
Well, resilience is hugely important. The fact that the game lasts as long as it does sometimes is a disadvantage in the modern world where everyone wants results in split seconds. However, it means that you are engaged with teammates and opponents for far longer, and there's many success stories. It gives you longer. The longer you spend together, hopefully the longer the bond is, the better the bond is.
The type of skill or coach that it takes to do that is not the traditional going into a public school and teaching cricket. It takes a different set of skills. Given that vision for the ability of cricket to impact those kind of communities and be that force for good and actually to turn lives around, what do you think differentiates someone best to communicate that from a typical cricket coach?
Well, a classic example. Well, it's not a classic example. If you think about Bob Woolmer, when he was coach here, he asked me to go to a cricket club in South Africa called St. Augustine's. St. Augustine's is Basil d'Oliveira's cricket club in Cape Town. In their whole existence, they'd never been allowed to play against white teams, which is why Basil came across here, to give himself an even chance of being able to progress as a sportsman and hopefully being able to go further up the ladder, which he did obviously by playing cricket for England. But Bob Woolmer said to me, I want you to come to Cape Town, a city I'd been to many times. I want you to come to Cape Town. I want you to be the professional for a team called St. Augustine's, and your job is to move the club, but more importantly the community forward. It's about much more than bat and ball and how many runs or wickets that you actually get. And at 6 months after I'd agreed to do that, at the end of that summer, he and I sat down in his garden, and I asked him why he'd asked me specifically to go and do that job, and he said because he knew how difficult it was going to be, because all my teammates, I used to be racially abused for being white, playing in a team of non-white people.
Am I right in saying you were the first, or indeed the only, white player to play for that club?
Yeah, I was the first white player ever to play for St Augustine's, the first ever professional, and it was a hard gig. I mean, great people, great friendships to this day. We keep in touch all the time. I think probably it's become more apparent the work that that was actually taking place then. You know, without sort of pulling my own wire, it was arguably the biggest opening of my eyes that I'd ever seen, and I thought I'd seen a lot. You know, I'd coached in South Africa in townships under apartheid, but this was actually the dismantling of it, where I would be racially abused by white people on the field asking me why I was playing in a team full of coloured people. What that actually did with me and my teammates is it made us grow stronger and stronger by the day. And if you were to speak to people at the club now in 2019, you'd actually get a fair indication of what we'd gone through. But these people, you know, had never been able to go into certain parts of town because they weren't the right colour. When we played cricket at Newlands, it was a pretty humbling experience for them because they'd never been able to go to the ground at Newlands and set foot on it. And I saw firsthand in our changing room what this was all about. It was a pretty humbling experience. So in many ways, my job was to go and run up and hit as many opponents as hard as I could with a cricket ball for what had taken place over generations, as it was to try and pull off as many results. But we couldn't play any of our games at home because the council, which was still a white council, they refused to cut the grass on the ground, despite the fact it was a council ground. There was a dispute going on, and it didn't matter how many meetings or how many phone calls that got put in. It was just never going to happen. So we had to play all our games away from home. So when you've gone through all those sorts of experiences, and people talk about trivial things that take place within sport, what you're actually doing is you're actually changing a culture. So how cricket transcends into everyday life and how you can change people's lives, that's be a classic example that hopefully will be broadcast a bit more further down the line.
Fantastic. So, well, let's talk a little bit about your career then and some of the influences. You've just been talking about Bob Woolmer. Sure. And in Wasted, you talk about influences on your career. You speak in glowing terms of him. Obviously, a very, very sad loss under terrible circumstances. Tell us a little bit about the man then, and how he influenced you, and kind of led you through the ups and downs of life generally, not just cricket.
Sure. I actually coached with Wooly in Johannesburg when I was an 18-year-old kid. He was very, very close to Dr. Ali Bakr, and Bakr was trying to break down as many barriers as possible. So that would mean coaching in Soweto. So I would coach in Soweto. Bob would be up seeing Dr. Ali Bakr, and he would come into Soweto. Further down the line, I reminded Bob that I had coached with him in Soweto, and he said, yeah, I remember, you were an 18-year-old who was always out on the town drinking beer and this, that and the other. So that was my immediate impression with Bob. Probably when we met further down the line and he came to Warwickshire, he probably thought I was just a slightly older version of what he'd thought I was when I was 18. Bob's impact here at Edgbaston was massive. When he first came, on his very first day, he said, if I can make you 5% better people, you'll become better cricketers. And I remember sitting in that meeting and thinking, that's a really interesting way of sort of putting something across. He always thought outside the box. He would always be curious as to how we could do things that opponents wouldn't spot, or if they had spotted it, it was too late. We were already all over them. He always encouraged you to develop different skills, to be better at the ones that you had. It was always important to him not only just to practice the things that you were trying to improve on, but to continually practice the things that you were very good at, so that when you did something well, you knew why you'd done it well. And obviously at the same time you're trying to improve on your weaknesses, and over time, if you practice enough and you give it enough thought, you'll be a much more dominant player.
So he coached you through that. It was 94 treble season, I think. Was it 95 double season as well?
Well, he came in 1991, and I'm pretty sure he left at the end of 1994 to become the South African coach. In 95, Phil Neal was a coach here, and we did a double. But I mean, in theory, we were such a dominant group of people. Never mind a dominant group of players. Between 91 and in the end of 94, that journey, that was 4 summers that he was here. Physically and mentally, it was probably the equivalent of 8 summers, because of everything that actually went on. We trained harder than anyone else. Obviously, the more successful you become, the more time you actually spend on the field or practicing before those big games, and the greater demands of you as a person, that eats into your social life, because the more successful you become, the more demands there are on you as a person to attend functions and celebrations and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, that's again something that I think is quite interesting, because you kind of, it's almost as if, if you paraphrase, or the tremolos, even the bad times are good. It's almost like even the good times can be bad, because one of the things you do talk about is so much demand, the intensity of playing the game, the demands on your personal time. If it isn't playing, it's club business, and almost that sense of untouchability and invincibility that works against where you go when that stops, that leaves you at a point, when the career folds down. It kind of led you for a while in your life, didn't it, into probably potentially sense of lacking direction and feeling kind of a little bit bereft for what you'd lost, as it were.
I think when I came here as a young kid, maybe naively, I looked at what I was watching, and obviously you had Willis, you had Calacharan, you had your Ramoses, you had some fantastic players who were floating around. What you actually had was that, bear in mind this is a 14-year-old kid thinking this, I thought that there could be, I didn't understand why the team didn't win more, and then the more you watch, the more maybe you understand the fact that the reason that the team didn't win as much is, I'm not saying there's a split camp, but you've got batters who think one thing and you've got bowlers that think another. I remember distinctly, much as the same as when I met Willis when I was 9, and think I want to play in the same team as you. I remember distinctly, before I signed my very first contract here, thinking that by the time I leave here, I want to have helped turn things around so that it was a dominant force. And by the time I was 30, we'd actually done that. And where you actually go from there is quite an interesting. It's quite an interesting stage of your life when you've actually set out to achieve. If you're Jimmy Page and you put 3 guys together with you and you form a band called Led Zeppelin, once you've actually achieved what you've done, where do you go from there? And then Bob went, and I think that was pivotal, because everything changed. Despite the fact that he would always take your calls, he'd always reply to emails and whatever, life goes on. And within a very short period of time, I found my eyes drifting off. I wanted to go to America. It was a completely different part of America I wanted to go to. I wanted to go and spend time in Texas, which I ultimately did. But yeah, I mean, I think now, in 2019, how players are looked after is probably very, very different to what it was in the the latter stages of my career. Whether it's done correctly now in 2019, I don't know. Things like a players' union advice on things like that. Whether they do it right or wrong is open for debate as well.
Well, that again is one of the things I wanted to sort of chat to you about. Is in the November issue, I think, of the Cricketer, you wrote the open letter to Alex Hales, and you were very encouraging, whilst also chastising to a degree, but encouraging, pointing him in directions of ways he could move himself forward. It wasn't critical, it was understanding, empathetic, but also directional in terms of ways he could address that. Has he responded in any way to that article, just out of interest? And you may not want to answer that. You may want to keep that between you if he has, but I'm curious to know.
I haven't heard anything from Alex Hales. I wouldn't expect to hear anything from Alex Hales. I'm not the easiest person to get hold of, to be fair. Although certain people at Notts who are affiliated with Notts, I've had a couple of people contact me from them, but they're not necessarily named people within their system. I think ultimately what happened with him, with me, I think that if you, how can I put it? If you have someone sat in front of you that you know there are issues in their life, I think it's absolutely crucial to be able to relate to them. You see, I deal with life experiences. I would always deal with the person who sat in front of me. I'm not saying you're trying to play the role of a psychologist, but if you have been in a position where your job is a very public one, you have a lot of people who would want to attach themselves to you because you are a well-known person. You may spend a lot of time on TV. You may be a personality of such. If you are an outgoing person, sometimes the temptations that are all around us are literally put in the palm of your hand. So he'd obviously fallen into a certain sort of situation in his life where within professional sport it's seen to be the antichrist, despite the fact that there are people from every walk of life who are doing exactly the same things. I wrote that article in the manner that I did in open letter form to Alex Hales, because if anything it would open up a way of thought for a reader. I mean, the easiest thing for Alex Hales and someone like myself to have a conversation is for someone to pick up a phone. What I was actually saying is, I've been there, done that. If you keep doing things the same way that you always have, the same situations will always keep arising. Where you say, the people that you surround yourself with can make or break your career, and the people that judge you within the sport, they don't really want you around too much because they talk about sponsors, they talk about this, they talk about partners and whatever. When in theory, without the likes of Alex Hales, you might not have sponsors, you might not have this, that and the other. You talk about a very disruptive person on the field. We're not all the same. Ian Botham used to say, you can't expect me to go home to my hotel room and wrap myself up in cotton wool when you see the way that... Well, that is, there's huge amounts of truth in that. So that's why I wrote it in the manner that I did. I could have written it in a completely different way, which would maybe not have the same impact.
Well, one of the things that I'd say quite impressed me about it was very, what's the word, the right word, kind of collegiate. So it wasn't, as I say, critical in any way. You actually named people, like the coach who's going to be, was it the Notts Outlaws? No, whatever they're calling 100 outfit in Trent Bridge. You pointed him in the direction of people you knew he would, Stephen Fleming, who had trodden a similar path or had similar issues, because you knew the opportunity would be there. It was almost as if he had come to you and if he had said, I could do with a bit of help, it's almost as he asked you that question, because it was very practical help you were giving him. It wasn't just theory. You were saying, talk to this guy, talk to that guy, here is an opportunity. And it was just very encouraging. That's what I thought. It was quite a warm article to read, because the criticism was there, but giving him the tools with which to set himself on the right course was also there, and I thought that was quite powerful the way it was done, to be honest.
But you see, to me, that's quite obvious. But then you're talking to someone who has seen certain things in life. So a certain type of person, at times in life when someone has done wrong, they get a figure of authority put in front of them. There is a discussion that takes place where the person in authority thinks that they're coming from the right angle, when in fact they're probably the last person on earth who should be sat in front of the person who has issues in their life. The assumption also is sometimes is that you bring in a sports psychologist or a psychologist and you sit down with that player, if we're talking about a professional sportsman, and often, yes, of course, they're the right person to be sat in front of, but if you have someone who's been in that very same position, both as a professional sportsman and fallen foul of, maybe in this case you talk about society's evil, maybe they are the perfect person to actually sit with that person and sort of, I'm not saying embrace the circumstances in which you find yourself, but people do find themselves in worse positions than that. We're talking about someone who screwed up and it affected their professional career. Hopefully the short term, he's lucky he got banned for 2 weeks. And he immediately could walk back into a situation where he could earn handsomely. I think back in the day, what used to happen was there'd be a QC called Gerard Elias, who the ECB used to, and he basically used to sit there as a QC and ban people for 2 years, so you couldn't earn a penny for 2 years.
I think you got the 2-year ban, didn't you? Although it was the end of your career, so it was almost like a...
I'd already retired. I retired because I knew there were issues in my life, and I knew that if I was still in professional sport, it was only going to make them worse. That's why I wanted to go and live in America, so I could sort myself out the way. And situations arose that shouldn't really have arisen. And before I know it, I was sat in front of a QC who banned me for 22 months. So any sort of possibility where I could earn decent money disappeared straight away. That now, further down the line, hopefully the people who are in charge there should realise that should have been he should have been the last person on earth who should have been sat in front of professional sportsmen, and he made hay whilst the sun shined because he banned loads of people for long periods of time.
Yeah, so that's an area I think well worth exploring in as we chat. I think because Alex Hales certainly. You can also look at cases like Alex Hebborn, Joe Clark, different kind of wayward behaviour, but young men in a team environment are never going to be angels. And it's never right to expect them to be, or to try and sit on the outside and expect there to be this kind of like purity of behaviour in young men who have naturally energy to burn. When you kind of went through those challenges that you had, did you feel that you had enough support and guidance from the club that you represented, or did you feel that they should have given you more? And do you feel that maybe today that support and advice is better and more accessible to players?
Support, support from Warwickshire. I think what actually happened with Warwickshire is I was gone, and then further down the line, when they realised I'd sorted myself out, they then played quite a big part in asking me to get involved in their community activities within this city of Birmingham. So they played a part further down the line. I think from a Professional Cricketers Association point of view, at that time, there was virtually no support in terms of how you can really move forward in life. What the PCA did for me is they dealt with creditors to make sure that I didn't lose a house, so that I had that amount of stability. But now I think in this day and age, what you've got is you have situations where before players retire, there is a lot of advice that is on hand, so that they've got a basic idea where the support is in the first place. But I think in my day and age that system wasn't there at all. Don't know if that answers the question or not.
I think it does. I mean, I know that having read the book, you went through some pretty tough times. I think you lost the access to your daughter, you lost your wife, divorce, and then lost the mother of the daughter, weren't able to see the daughter. Clearly the issues with drugs and drink that you fought your way through. And I was just wondering, was there anyone at that time who was able to kind of at least try and help you, or as you were pretty much coming to the end of it, or at the end of your career, were you kind of a little bit cut adrift?
I think cut adrift is probably a fair assessment, but I think if you have a load of issues in your life, anyone who's gone through those things will probably we probably all say you find out who your mates are. Most of the people who were dominant in my life at that time had nothing to do with professional sport, and even to this day, 20 odd years down the line, they're probably people that I'm most close to. They're not people that, even if I named them, you wouldn't know who they are. They don't necessarily live in the best parts of town. They weren't people who could sort of put you up in accommodation or anything like that. They knew, they got it. Some of them had been through the very same things. Some of them hadn't gone through the very same things, but I've been able to advise them because they have further down the line in their own lives. Maybe many of the things that I went through, that's why, I ended up working with people who were homeless, because I got it. Many times people said to me, "What are you doing here?" They couldn't believe that because they see the public life, they see TV, they see success, they see a lot of different things. They couldn't believe that I was either in those circumstances or helping in those places, because at that time of my life, they were the realest people that I could actually ever spend time with, because they were absolutely desperate, and it didn't matter to me how desperate I felt. I knew they were in a worse position than me, so at least it was a matter of, it was cathartic, if nothing else.
Well, that kind of takes us back a little bit to that whole thought of confidence and purpose. So to sort of, regain your confidence and purpose, you hit upon a direction for your career and your life that enabled you to help other people using the skills that you had. And we are going to talk a lot more about that. I guess what I was kind of interested in was the question, though, is where does the responsibility of parochial care of a cricket club who you've played for 12 years, in many cases players play for their whole career, where does that necessarily start and stop? I mean, history is littered, sadly, with players who didn't come out the other side. I'm thinking I can go right back to Albert Trott, if you want to, Sid Barnes, Harold Gimlett, Peter Roebuck. They're all people who clearly, for whatever reason or other, didn't come out of the game and figure out things kind of went astray.
More suicides than any other sport.
Yeah. So why is that? And do you feel, and I'm not trying to lead you down a path here, but do you feel clubs should do more to kind of, I guess maybe it's about preparing and giving some initial support to life beyond, what goes on once you've stepped over the white line?
I think cricket clubs are cricket clubs, and we're sat here at Edgbaston. This is a great cricket club, but it is a cricket club, and I think that if you look at the history of this place, if you look at the coaching staff, a lot of them are ex-players. There's only so many people can coach, so there's only so many jobs. I think that things like mentoring, bringing ex-players in, should be looked at. And I'm not just talking about Warwickshire here, I'm talking about the whole system. I know that there are ex-sportsmen, there are ex-marines, there's all sorts of people who go into business and give fascinating and motivational speeches, and that's a part of industry that I explore and have gone and done bits and pieces of work in. But a cricket club is a cricket club. I think the key to it is we are all part of a players' union. I think the players' union have to continually assess everything that they are doing for ex-players. The focus tends to be on the present, but when there's not many present players take their lives. It tends to be further down the line when people are retired. The issues where you lose the stability of a changing room, of a structure, of a this, that, and the other. It's easy to put your hand up when you're a player and say, I think I've got a problem. It doesn't happen very often because you've actually identified you've got a problem, and then the club has to look at you to see if you are a problem within their very small system. How the players' union advise players and ex-players is absolutely pivotal. And I think it needs constantly assessing the whole time, and any smug element within that system ought to be pinpointed, and doesn't matter who it is, from the top to the bottom, it needs constant scrutiny.
If we take and it was actually kind of interesting in a way that, when I'm looking at articles written about you and about the book, there was kind of a resurgence of interest in a way in 2013, and that was sadly, for the worst of reasons, because of the death of Tom Maynard. And then, there were people, including Mike Atherton, I think, who kind of explored the issues that you went through, and the fact that, nowadays, if we look at 2019, so we've moved on 5-6 years, would the issues that someone like Tom Maynard was facing have been managed better than they even were in 2013? Did it take something like that to wake people up to the fact that you need to be more alert for these kind of issues to be dealt with?
People are reactive. I mean, obviously with Tom Maynard, I know his father Matt. He's a contemporary, and I can't imagine what the family have gone through. I mean, absolutely desperate. I'm not saying the warning signs are there, but what I do know is that, you see, I'm a great one. I would always listen to people whose experience has sort of stemmed from the battlefield. Anything that's learnt in the classroom is obviously important, because that maybe means that people are better at presenting in front of an audience. It doesn't necessarily mean that what they're presenting is absolutely spot on. I see holes in all sorts of presentations where people are talking to an audience. I'm not saying I'm the greatest person in front of an audience, but I back my stuff, and I've done enough of it. And I've judged myself solely on feedback. What happened with Tom Maynard was preventable, very preventable. I think people sometimes are frightened to ask questions. Think you've got a problem, mate? Because I think you've got a problem, mate. And if you've actually been there yourself, and the person knows you've been there yourself, it's easier for someone like myself, to go and sit in front of a player, or go and ask searching questions, because I've had to ask searching questions of people have asked searching questions of me, and I've had to ask searching questions of myself. I've also got 4 kids who sometimes ask searching questions, and I'm probably the best person to ask those questions of, because I don't really care what they've seen. I've probably seen worse. So I think I'm a fair judge. In 2019, you're always going to have situations arising. We just had one with Alex Hales. Didn't lead to death. What it led to is a situation on the eve of a World Cup, first one at home for 40 years. And you got a major player who they can't play because of an issue, over a Class A drug. It's not the worst thing that could possibly happen, but in terms of the image of the game is always the thing that will prevail, and the player will always fall by the wayside. So I think a lot of these things are preventable. I think a lot of the way that things are gone about, as I say, everything's open to be looked at, and everything's open to look as to whether it could be put across in a better manner.
Yeah, I go along with that. Incidentally, you talked about presentations. The single best bit of advice I ever got was that no audience ever wants to see you fail. That's always worth remembering.
Unless you're an opponent of,
Well, it's different if you're in a competitive situation. But if you're stood up in front of a group of people, they never want to see you fail. And what I would like to do, and we're certainly going to come on and talk about your time in LA and how you got there, but it would be remiss of us in this chat not to just hit on a few career highlights. And maybe just start quite early on. I mean, your dad, I think, played for Leicestershire. Your brother played here. Was cricket almost like a direction you always felt you were going to go in?
I could take you back before Dad. I mean, my grandfather died on the field at the Grange, which is at the home of Scottish cricket, at the crease. The bowler ran into bowl. He was just about to bowl the ball, and my grandfather fell over straight towards point, stone cold dead. So cricket was always played in our family. My dad was a very good player. Then we had a war. He spent 10 years in the RAF, came out, played 2 years for Leicester, then got offered opportunity to go back up north, pro'd for Northumberland, pro'd in the leagues, pro'd with Rowan Canai, joint pro at Ashington, Steve Harmson's club. So for me, I can never remember a time where we didn't have bat and ball in our hand, playing in the back lane, playing at the cricket club, playing games, practicing it. So there was David, Tony and myself. My middle brother Tony was also on the staff here for 2 years, 3 years maybe. So cricket would be in our blood.
I am, as I said in the intro, give you a couple of highlights and ask you maybe to pick out a couple that really meant something to you. Clearly, the 94 treble, you were man of the match in the Lord's Benston Hedges final. You did the double in 95. You were the youngest player to score 1,500 runs in a first-class season in 86. You were part of the world record of, was it 8 consecutive 50-run partnerships with Andy Moles. You played in 6 one-day finals. And so to take the earlier theme we had around confidence and purpose, there must have been points in that career when it was really, really high and you would have felt invincible. What most comes to your mind when you look back on some of those highlights?
Well, playing in a Lord's final when I was 20, my first Lord's final, that was part of a highlight because I told my dad that I would play in the Lord's final when I was well young. Sat in front of the telly in Newcastle watching it with my dad, and I said I'll play in the final at Lord's one day. I also told him I'd get man of the match in the final one day, which I managed to pull off.
You did indeed.
Things like, we didn't mention it there, 1993 final against Sussex where we chased 322, which was the start of our run of, I think, 6 trophies in 24 months. That would be a highlight because we did it without Alan Donald. We didn't have an overseas player. That taught us a lot. And then, so obviously people playing cricket with people like Alan, Brian Lara, obviously Willis's and your Calatrans and your Amos's, but also playing in an era where all the greats of the world played, Viv, Joel, wherever you went, Mako, Malcolm Marshall at Hampshire, Gordon Greenwich, Sylvester Clarke, everywhere, Imran Khan, Sir Richard Hadley, the list goes on and on and on. Everywhere you played, you play against people who were household names, but also real geniuses of their trade. And they were pretty humble people, so you could actually spend a lot of time with them and learn from them.